Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
Good morning, everybody. It is 8:37. Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman. This is the place where Washington comes to talk. Even Tom Brokaw wants to come here and talk.
That's awesome.
He's on the line right now. Tom, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I was just thinking over the weekend that it was 39 years ago that I moved to Washington. It was the fall, actually it was the summer of 1973, to cover the White House during Watergate. That was right after the hearings had ended, and Agnew was still in office, and a lot was going on in the next year.
Wow. And now you live in New York City, and you're a Giants fan, do I have that right?
Pardon me?
Now you live in New York City most of the time, and you're a Giants fan, are you not?
I am a Giants fan.
Well, we're pretty pumped up about our Redskins. How are you feeling about your Giants?
You know, it was not an encouraging start, but you know we did the same thing last year. By the way, I was a Redskin regular when I lived in Washington D.C., and I'm still a huge Sonny fan. I mean, I think he's one of the all-time great NFL quarterbacks, and I love listening to him talking about what's going on in the game. So those were glory days as well. Before that, I was in Los Angeles, had season tickets for the Rams. So I'm a migratory fan.
Gotcha.
Understood.
Right. Well, let's talk about. There's a lot of things we need to talk about. First of all, how are you feeling after your little brush the other day?
Well, I'm fine. I did a dumb thing. I got up early in the morning, a little bit groggy and slightly dehydrated. It turns out because I'd worked late the night before and I'd been working out, and I thought I was taking 2 baby aspirin. It turns out I was taking 1 baby aspirin and half an Ambien. Not a smart combination, I'm here to tell you.
All right. Well, we're glad you're feeling better. All right. The conventions, what did you think?
Well, I think that conventions have outgrown their current form. I don't think that they're as useful as they need to be. The numbers were way off in terms of ratings, and we ought to reduce them to one day and have one grand evening of the big speeches, and then have rallies around the country simultaneously in which they're beamed to the football stadia, for example, in Denver or Seattle or Chicago, and get out the vote rallies so that the voters feel involved. Now it seems like a closed-off and slightly goofy process with people in crazy hats and lots of excitement about one speech after another. I think that the Romneys did a very effective job of introducing him for his human qualities, both with her speech, Mrs. Romney's speech, and then the candidate's speech, although he's been criticized from the right for not including any tribute to the fighters, the warriors, the American warriors, and the price that they paid in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Bill Clinton is known affectionately within Democratic circles as the big dog.
Right.
And the big dog proved that he can still bark. That was a very effective speech, and a lot of people afterwards said, why isn't he running again?
Right. Well, I was going to ask you that. Do you think he overshadowed President Obama in his speech?
I don't know whether I'd go so far as to say overshadow. I thought that President Obama gave a middlingly good, mature speech about the realities that the country faces. I always try to leave it to the people who are listening or are going to cast these votes for them to make a decision rather than for me to impose my judgment on them as well. The president got off a couple of pretty good lines, but Bill Clinton, he's a born performer. They didn't call him Elvis for nothing when he was in the White House.
I know you have a book, The Time of Our Lives. I'm curious to get your take on how we have news now, 24-hour news, cable news, and Twitter and Facebook and everything else out there. Instantaneous news. Is news being delivered worse today or better today?
I think there's many more choices, so I think by and large it's better. With a keystroke, you can read papers in foreign capitals or your hometown newspaper wherever you live in America. You can get financial data very quickly. You can get the weather. You can get traffic conditions anywhere in the country. But you have to be much more aggressive as a news consumer in terms of what holds up over time, what news source has a sense of integrity, and what works best for you. Where are you getting reliable information? I have a friend in Montana who often comes to me and says, "You're not going to believe what I read on the Internet today." And I have the same response. You're right. I'm not going to believe what you read on the Internet today.
Do you think? Do you have a concern, or do you think this is fine? With it seems to me people are choosing their news outlets based on their political views. If you're conservative, you may lean to watching Fox, and if you're a liberal, you may watch the MSNBC. And CNN is tries to play in the middle, and they're not doing so well.
Well, that's always been true, but not to the degree that it is now. The Wall Street Journal always had a conservative readership. The New York Times, more liberal. The New York Post used to be a very liberal newspaper here in the city. The Washington Post was kind of, I suppose, just left of center for most people. The Washington Times, obviously, plays to a conservative audience. But there are a lot of people out there who want just what they can find that will be useful to them in terms of information. And they have to work harder at doing that now because it comes at them in a cascade all day, every day.
All right, so we're going to ask, every time we get somebody who knows politics, we ask this same question. It's an ongoing debate that Brian and I have. It has to do with how this election is going to turn out. I believe it's going to be very close. So close that we may have sort of a replay of 2000 where one candidate wins the popular vote, the other wins the Electoral College. Brian has a different view.
Well, I just think that if you look at approval ratings, and approval ratings have shown that President Obama is under 50%, it's very difficult for presidents to win when their approval rating is that low. And even in the battleground states, it shows him with only 50% or above in 13 states. So if you look at it from that angle, I think that it could be a comfortable win for Mitt Romney on November 6th, but I guess we'll find out in 2 months. But what do you think?
What do you think?
Where this is going?
Well, I'm going to give you the line that has served me well for many, many years. I've been doing this for a long time. I believe in the UFO theory. The UFO theory is that the unforeseen will occur.
Yeah.
For example, this first presidential debate is going to be critically important. People are going to tune in, my guess is, in record numbers that night, and that will really set the stage for the final dash to the tape, as it were. Then we don't know what happens in the world. Something could blow up in Afghanistan. European economy, which is slowly and in a muddling way repairing itself, could go to hell in a hurry. Something could happen in China. So these are the kinds of issues that you have to keep your eye on. You remember 4 years ago, John Kerry was in a very strong position going into the final weekend, and then Osama bin Laden issued a message on Friday, quite threatening, and the country apparently decided better to stay with the commander-in-chief we know than the one that we don't know.
All right, Tom Brokaw, it was a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much, and best of luck with Time of Our Lives now out in paperback. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian and Brian.
Bye-bye.